Hey everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can take the creative leap and start painting today. This is a romantic, fantastical landscape painting. It's a little bit fantasy. It's a little bit impressionistic. It's very beginner friendly. I'm going to break down every technique. I'm going to explain every tool. I'm going to demonstrate everything I'm doing in real time in a variety of different ways so that you can create your own version of these paintings at home. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
And he is here to make sure that the cameras are pointing at what I'm painting and that you have a good view of everything. If you're watching this here on the premiere, I hope you're having a good time in chat. Remember to put your questions all in caps. But remember, you can ask questions anytime, no matter when any video has ever aired, in the comments below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future lessons. And there's nothing left for you to do but get your paint, get your brushes, take the creative leap with me right now. I have a 9x12 surface. You saw the materials. Materials are in the description. Materials exist in the mini book and on the web page on the website. So lots of places to find that. But just to go over where they are on here, Mars Black, Burnt Sienna, Phthalo Green is right here. Phthalo Blue is right here. Cadmium Red, Cadmium Yellow, and Titanium White. Sometimes these are called Cad Red and Cad Yellow to shorten it, and you can use hue. That's fine. I have the wish or intention on here that, remember I said take a creative leap with me, that you leap with me, and that means, let's run that down a little bit, John. That means listen. Listen to yourself, not to others, to yourself. As an artist, when we want to learn like an artist, we have to listen to ourselves. I want you to be empathetic with yourself, have empathy for yourself. Instead of letting that hypercritical, judgmental voice take place, say forgiving things of yourself, like it's okay if I don't know every technique. That's all right, because I'm coming back to painting from a long time, or I haven't painted before, or it's okay if I have a bit of tremor in my hand. I'm recovering from something in a health journey. Like just be kind and as empathetic to yourself as you'd want to be to your best friend. Accept today and this painting where it is. Right? A lot of times we get in a moment, we get in our own head and we forget to accept things. Then be present. Also here in the video, be present with us here, but also be present in the now. Don't live in a future fear or past experience with art. Be just in this one painting right now. Other paintings before, paintings in the future, right now. And then when you're all of those things, paint, because nothing helps you paint more than painting.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, that's okay if you just want to listen today and watch along, because our mirror neurons work too. I feel like we have a really good foundation to start. We're in a good space. So when we come back, step one. The first step of our project is the easiest step, which is just a colored ground. I'm going to put out a little blue paint to help you remember. It's just phthalo blue. We're going to paint the whole canvas phthalo blue. You don't have to squeeze out phthalo blue on your canvas like that. That was just something fun I could do to be illustrative and dramatic. But really, we just want the whole canvas to be blue. Doesn't have to be perfect blue. You just want to cover the canvas in an acrylic paint. So you could get your paint from your palette too. I'm using, if you're wondering what this brush is, it's actually a cool brush. This is a number 30 Simply Simmons XL, which is like an extra firm and extra large kind of brush. They're actually not that pricey and they can make painting big areas. This is not a big area, easier. It's a convenience brush though. And what that means is you don't have to have it to do work. It's not super necessary for your art journey. Wow, did I guesstimate the amount of paint I was going to need today? Well, was that not
That was pretty good.
weirdly spot on? I was so worried when I decided to do that, like right after I had the impulse and then squeezed it out, that I was going to way overestimate the amount of paint that I would need. And be scraping paint back off onto the palette or have to do some camera magic. But it looks like years of experience have paid off. Look at this. It's streaky. It's not perfect. That's not the point. If you're someone who likes to paint the edges, this would be when you would do that now with this blue paint. Or if you're just going to frame, make sure you have enough of the turn. That's the turn on the canvas, right? To paint around the edge so somebody could restretch it if they ever wanted to, because you never know Your family in the future may have this painting as a fond memory of you, and they might need to restretch it or do some conservancy on it. I don't know. We don't know, do we?
No.
So have a blast. When we come back, I'll show you what's next. When we come back, though, make sure your canvas is dry. So I dried my canvas with a hairdryer, right? Because I didn't want to wait around and do that. You can let your canvas air dry. If you're in a hurry, you can let your canvas dry with a hairdryer. Try not to use something with a really high heat that can cause color shift and in really extreme cases, off-gassing and formaldehyde. So, like heat guns and stuff like that. You want to just put some air over it and get it dry. Now, I'm going to do a thing where I'm going to take chalk. This is a fancy chalk. This is used by tailors. You can get these at Joann. They're a chalk tool.
Nice.
Same chalk, though, as on the chalkboard. It's just fancier.
It's got a fancy holder.
The fancy part is convenience, right? But just what I'm going to be doing is making some chalk lines to basically sketch out major objects in my landscape. If you're using the traceable, this is when you would transfer that onto your canvas right now. Both techniques are equally good. And I'm going to start out coming down low with a tool called the T-square. I like me a T-square, John. And I'm going to make a line across the canvas, and I want it kind of be guesstimatingly about a lower third. If I were to measure that up, 3 inches. Man, I'm so weird how like sometimes I can eyeball things like right on because I'm not really like mathematics. So it always surprises me when my art brain is better at spatial relationships than my math brain ever was. So this is my horizon line. This is kind of the distant area. And we're going to be working on atmospheric perspective, but for beginners in landscape. So you're going to be learning complicated stuff, but in a really easy way that will help you further down your painting. I'm going to go ahead and say that I've got a little landmass, right? That's going to come out here. And maybe it's going to make a corner, right? And kind of go back. And then we know we're going to have some grass and some flowers that are over here, but we know we're going to see our stream, our water body go back there. And then I might take another little line and kind of come here and make some sort of observations of land going down. See how this is a weird little finger? It's a little point out. And we know we're going to have trees and things back here. We don't actually need to worry at this stage too much about those. But the next thing that I want you to worry about, I'm going to help you do clouds better today. You ready to do clouds better? I know. I feel like I heard yes from houses across the world. Yes. What have you got? I doubt you, but I'll give it a try anyways, right? That's where you're at. What we're going to do is I'm going to sketch in the kind of wandering shape. I think sometimes that's what throws everybody. So I'm going to sketch in the wandering shape to give you a better basis to understand where your clouds are going to come in. I'm going to come right here. This is just past the middle point of my canvas, slightly on the left side. And I'm going to make a wiggly. Look at my wiggly line, John. Look at that great wiggly line. See how I'm wandering around? Pretend your chalk is an ant. It's just looking for stuff. Can you see that at all? Okay. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go ahead and bring that wander up there. This is going to help me understand where the lighter area of clouds is and where the darker area of clouds is and start to give me a better cloud line. So when I'm making those little motions with my brush, you guys can really see what I'm doing. Now here I'm going to say, ooh, there's some little kind of clouds coming out here. Right, they're doing little cloud things. And I know that I'll have clouds in the forefront, but right now I'm just trying to kind of think about maybe some of the different values of cloud forms that I might have. And there'll be some highlighted clouds in front, but this is sort of this basic shape and gradation that we're going to get. And what I want you to look at is just the way the lines wander in and out. This is to help us not make cotton ball clouds. Right? We got a stormy day going on here. We don't want to make cotton ball clouds. So this is what we need. And the other thing we can maybe do is make some straight lines that kind of go across in our water. Just to start helping us think about that. This is going to be a reflection of light that comes down. Why? Because there's a reflection of light that comes down. And I'm doing this right now on this image. I'm doing this simple landscape because I think that we need images in our mind that calm them right now.
Right.
Right? Whatever you've got going on in your life, whatever is currently burdening you, having things that you look at on your wall that lift your spirit, and even remembering doing the painting can help you calm down. And so they're a great touchstone for that. Let's take a deep breath, sip coffee, come back, and I'll show you the next step. So on this step, doing this sky, I'm really going to be leaning into this tool. This is a hog brush. This particular brush is the number 18 Raphael Artini brush. Okay, it's got hog bristles, and when it gets wet, it will get a little bit fluffy, but fluffy is what I want here. I'm looking forward to the fluffy. I'm going to be working mostly from left to the right side of the canvas in this first layer. I'm going to have a dark value, ever increasingly light values. The lightest value, that's how light or dark your paint is going to be right here. And then it's become increasingly dark out this way, which creates kind of a keyhole of light, which will give us our drama, our inspiration in the center of the painting. Okay. Looks complicated when you see it done on a finished painting, but actually not that complicated to do. Good time to practice listening to yourself, compassionate, empathetic listening to yourself when you're going through, and kind of see if you can let your little inner artist speak to you a bit. They might be quiet, though, if you haven't let them speak up in a while. Okay. No, because sometimes I think we silence our inner instincts and our inner creativity, don't we?
I think you can, yeah.
For group thought, almost, like just to go with the group. But sometimes we have our own little inner, like, no, I want purple hair. Obviously, I listen to my inner artist. Now, I'm going to begin by taking a little bit of my burnt sienna over to my phthalo blue. And it's going to make a very deep blue-green. You see that there? Now, with phthalos, they're very transparent, and I'm just kind of making a little bit of a wiggly motion, bringing it in. And that's helping me not make obvious brush strokes, right? And what does that mean? Well, like somebody like Vincent van Gogh made obvious brush strokes. They had directionality, and those things really formed the shape of the painting, didn't they? But here, we don't want to do that. We're going to be a little looser and more discreet about it. I'm going to go ahead and get a little of my white, just a smidge of it, and a little more blue into this. You can even get a little green into it if you want. Be a little playful. And let's come here and kind of see, lighten some of this out. And see how it's very irregular. Those little shapes that I was making, they're helping me build this cloud bank. And that can be really a big deal when I'm trying to learn how to build complex sky shapes like this. Having a little roadmap and knowing where I'm going, can be useful. John and I were talking today about being Gen X and how, like, I can read a key map or paper map. Now, much like many couples in the 80s, I can't fold the thing to save my life.
That was a different skill.
That origami was never, ever my friend. See, I'm working this lighter color down a bit. Now, what can I do? I can come here and put quite a bit more white into this and blue, which is rather pretty. I can even get a little bit of my phthalo green into that, brightening it up. I'm going slowly because I want to make little incremental moves, not big moves that just sort of overwhelm everything that I'm doing. I'm making little curving strokes. I'm working the brush from the mid-belly to the toe. That's from this part to this part. And I'm blending wet into wet, which means that my paint that's on the canvas is still wet when I'm adding this new lighter color. And that's going to help me create softer clouds. The other thing that I'm doing that's going to help me create softer clouds is using a light pressure. If I need to add a little water to my brush, I can. This is still wet here, so I can do this pretty easily.
And you talk about not making patterns a lot.
Well,
cloud stuff. Yeah,
patterns happen in nature, but it's when nature's trying to communicate very specific things to us. Let's add a little more white to this and a little bit more yellow. So like when nature wants to tell you, I'm poison.
Oh,
It gives you a lot of really distinctive patterns. So it's not that nature never makes patterns, right? Sometimes it's trying to say you can't see me. And even though I'm orange, I'm going to have stripes because I'm counting on everything else that I eat to be kind of colorblind. Right? Though we're not, so that helps us, doesn't it?
it's true. So it apparently wants some people to know. Some things, critters.
No, I think it just, didn't have to worry about us in its little development, so it's not so concerned. You can see I'm just coming here. Look at this nice cloud bank going. Isn't that a nice cloud bank? And again, it's just the beginning. It's not everything. You kind of come here along this little horizon line, right? Work a bit of this light color here. I know I'm going to have grasses there, so I can work that. This little motion here where I'm kind of like rough with my brush is called a scumble. And that's okay to do.
Wrong button. Backward.
Now I'm going to add a little more white. What? A little more yellow. I know. Daring. So daring right here. Maybe even a little more white. Not all the way white, because I still want to have some room for some kind of brighter clouds. I'm sort of following my lines that I made earlier. If I need to get more water on my brush, I will. And that can help the blend. Sometimes I have to rinse it out completely and start over again. What I don't want to do is create little circle swirls that look like wool. And I want to make sure that my clouds have soft and blended edges, which I think we're doing pretty good at.
Yeah.
A little bit there, a little bit here. And I'm listening to that inner artist, that one you're practicing listening to, that maybe you haven't let be participant at the table in a minute, right?
Yeah.
We live a lot of our lives for other people more than we know. So at this time, right now, at this canvas, I want you to just live for yourself a little bit. So I'm going to add a little more brown to my brush and a little more blue. And I'm going to get back into that color and work it into my light color. I'm going to come in and add this little cloud bank in. Look at that go. Now see, if you had your traceable, you've been kind of following those little lines. And this will help you get that distant little effect going. Now I might get into the lighter, more white water if I need it. Because I know I've got a lighter cloud there down towards the bottom. And again, this isn't the last layer in the cloud, so things don't have to be perfect. If I get too much water going, what I can have is kind of almost a foaming, but it will go down. And you can blend it away with a soft brush. Doesn't always show on the camera. I'm adding a darker color. So I always like to describe it to you guys so you know what you're getting into. Now I'm trying to be as irregular with each layer of clouds as I can, right? You can kind of see where this sky is developing. The colors that we're using give us a sense of the day being stormy. Some more blue into it.
It's funny how those colors can imply that.
They do. They imply that this day is stormy. I'll go a really long, strong amount of blue. And I can then blend into this wet area that I had from earlier. Look at that. Let's bring a little tendril. And I'm just working that toe. And the toe is helping me create little cloud banks, isn't it? Come in with a little bit of white. Look at that. Clouds have dark and light in them. And I'm definitely going to want the corner of my sky up here to maybe be a little bit darker. And have a bit more depth. And so that will be probably over 2 or 3 layers to really get the full depth in. that I'm looking to get. And until I'm there, I can add little implications with my lighter color while the paint's wet, can't I?
That's pretty cool.
Of distant little dark cloud banks. This is maybe something you haven't tried before. And what do you need to be when you haven't tried before? You have to be empathetic to yourself, don't you? You have to be kind. That learning new things can be challenging, and you have to accept that that's okay. That's all right. Your clouds today are not your clouds 100 or 200 paintings from now. I promise you. They are today's clouds, and you're getting to paint today's sky. Be present and excited about how nice that is so that you can keep painting. Don't let that negative self-talk get involved. Listen to what you're saying to yourself. Are you saying, you got this, you can do this? You've, changed a tire in a dark road by yourself, or you've faced many challenges that would have crushed other people, and you got through that. Are you saying things to encourage yourself, or are you reminding yourself of every time you talked yourself out of something you wanted to do? Try to pay attention to that as you go. Making little circles, paying attention to my self-talk. I have to do that as a teacher. John will tell you.
That's true.
I have to watch my self-talk because I can get very negative in it, and then it doesn't make me a better teacher. It doesn't make me a better painter. It doesn't help me help you. This is layer 1 of that very complicated sky you saw in the beginning in the thumbnail that probably got you to click this painting.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to rinse this brush out in 2 cups. I do 1 cup first. That's going to be where most of my paint is going, and then I'm going to do my 2nd cup for the clean rinse. I'm going to take the water out of this brush. I still wash this brush thoroughly at the end of every painting session, but for right now, I just want to get the paint out so it's not drying on there. Now, in skies, there's that sweet spot where things are dry or where things are wet. I think for the next layer, we want it to be dry. I'm going to go ahead and allow this layer to dry. You can use a hairdryer or air dry. When we come back, we're going to put in the next more kind of shaped clouds, focal clouds. So this is a fun layer because now we're going to put in some details, some focal clouds, some more drama in the lighting, some more exciting, vibrant depth in the sky. And it's where we're going to really see this work come and pay out for us. I'm going to start with a smaller hog round brush. This is a number 6 Raphael Artini. Are there other hog brushes? Yes, there are. Many, many hog brushes out there. They're made from hog bristles. You can go to stores and find them. The thing to do with them is to wash them thoroughly before you ever use them. Otherwise, they shed all over your canvas. Super irritating. Not anyone's favorite. I tell you right now. I'm going to go ahead and get this brush wet, and I'm going to start piecing in some details in my clouds. Now, some of the things that I can do is if I get a little bit of my phthalo blue, and I come right here to this bank, and I add a shadow, look how I'm doing, into this cloud. Between these two, I'm almost glazing, right? Because phthalo blue is so transparent, and I'm just using it to sort of tint and tone. But look at how it pulls those banks apart from each other.
It really does. It creates that separation.
It creates that separation. Now I can come in with a little bit of my white, even a little yellow if I want. Ooh, so dramatic. And I want to make sure that I'm a lighter value than what I have here. And I'm kind of define some of my little banks that are in here. Look at me go. Just making some of these clouds be the stars. Wispy bits coming off.
Yeah.
Painting a cloud is like painting a rock, is like painting a horse, is like painting a car. And the reason it is because the canvas and the paint never change.
Ah,
right?
That's interesting.
It's always a flat surface. It's always color, hue, and value, right? We're not sculpting it. We can. That's certainly done in art, but that's not what this is. So no matter what we're painting, all we have to our disposal is color, value, how light or dark something is, right? And the way that we apply it, the techniques we use to create effects. Those are what we're doing. So if you paint a rock, you're still using techniques, the same techniques that you might use when you've got to paint a cloud.
This creates a lot of dimensionality.
Right, that's what we're doing right here, is we're just giving this guy some super dimensionality. It's very exciting, some of this. I'm going to get a little white over to that kind of brown, and I'm going to come in here. So it's light, but it's also kind of browned out. That's kind of nice and stormy. And we're just really thinking about these clouds right here. Not all clouds, just these clouds right here. Let me add a little bit of that white there. Making little circular strokes, not circles. They're like more like commas, actually. Sometimes they're multi-directional. Sometimes they do make a full circle. It's about me using my brush.
Different angles.
Yeah, and one of the other things you might not know is I'm rolling it as I paint. I have a tendency to roll my brush. I've been teaching online for a minute, and of those years that I've been teaching online, I've realized there are subconscious things that we artists do from years of painting that we forget to tell our students about. Like, did y'all notice I was rolling my brush while I was doing that? Because there's subtle little things that you're like, need more paint, need more paint, need more paint. And so it can be hard. I'm going to take a little of my phthalo green and phthalo blue together to notice that we're doing those things. I'm going to maybe add a glaze of a little bit of a darker value here into this. And then I'm also, it's such a bright hue, isn't it?
It really is.
So that's very dramatic. That was just the phthalo green and phthalo blue, but it's coming in and it's going, whoa, what's that? You can be like, I don't really know. It just was beautiful, and I thought you should be there right now. But coming back in, I'm going to come back into my burnt sienna and my phthalo blue and really some white. Offloading my paint. That means I have a load that's heavy, the brush is too full of paint, and I'm rubbing it either on a paper towel or my palette to remove some paint. These are control mechanisms that I have. You can have them too. It's not just me.
Mm-hmm.
If I tell you about them, you could be like, oh, I had too much paint. I could go like this. I could go like this. I can get rid of some of that paint. On goes the paint. Off goes the paint. How wet's the paint? These are the games we're playing. I'm getting a little bit of white to come into the blue-green. Soften that a bit, maybe. Really have it fill up this one. Again, what I'm doing here is I'm listening to my inner artist. My inner artist is saying, hey, increase, decrease value. That's what it's telling me about, is the value of things. Now, I might need to rinse my brush off. This is busy, busy work, right? Mm-hmm. Skies are as busy as painting all the hairs on a snow leopard. We can technique these out, right? But the only way we can actually technique these out, if you've ever tried to do a simplistic technique video where it's like brush, 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 sky, the only reason that works for that artist is because that artist painted 30,000 paintings and they understand all they need to understand about skies, so they know when their brush hit it with the technique. But you can't get there. Well, new students struggle to get there until they learn that foundational series of like, this is when the sky looks like sky. Which is why I don't lean into that quite as hard. As you can see, these clouds have started to render. You don't think of it, but dark clouds are common in skies too. Mm-hmm. So it's as powerful to work on dark clouds as it is light clouds. Very rare are clouds just white. That's a special kind of day in the sky.
That's true. It's also like a lot of light.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of light, very little impurity. The light has to be at a specific point in the day. Cloud, there's many little factors that make those clouds white. And even then, they're sort of like white blended into the value of the sky.
Interestingly enough, no clouds casting shadows on the clouds. Because that makes them look grayer.
That's right. If all the clouds are white, that means there's no clouds above them casting shadows down. Interesting thing to have to worry about. Let me just going. Now, I know I want to have a very dark value up here, and I want it to be dramatic. And I could do that with this little brush. I could, but that would take me so long. So I'm going to get my big brush back out and mix my very dark sky color.
That is very dark.
Right? And kind of really fill that in because that's building up in the phthalo layers, isn't it? That's glazing up. And that is just, when you do that, you're like, oh, that really adds. How fun is that? So fun.
Yeah.
You can play with the shadows between the clouds. See how I'm doing? Playing with the shadows between the clouds.
I do.
Subtle. Oh my goodness. That's looking really good, guys. That's lovely.
It really is.
Okay. So now we need a little bit of finish. But I think actually what we'll do is we'll dry this and we'll come back and we'll put our finishing forward clouds. So I'm going to put some slightly brighter clouds kind of through here that might be a little more forward, but I don't want them to be so saturated that I lose the drama of the flowers. So I am going to make an orange, but I'm going to add a little brown to it.
All right.
Right? Because I want it to be there. I don't want it to be so much that our flowers don't stand out as the unique beings they are. So I'm going to bring my little brush in here. Still the number. Is that a 6 or an 8? That's an 8. And I'm going to make some little distinctive. Look how distinctive that is. That's really noticeable, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
This is a distinctive little series of kind of cloud formation. I've got different color in my brush, and I'll still have to play with value and things like that. Let's put a little. I definitely am glad I'm using the smaller brush because I want to have some control over the type of cloud I'm getting. Probably shouldn't do the finger thing I just did. I use real cadmium, and you could have an allergy to it. I don't, but you could, so you shouldn't do that. Ignore that. Don't do that. There are habits we get into as artists. Finger smudging being one of them. It has been a hard one for me to break. And every once in a while, when I'm not thinking, I do it. Mouth sizing is another one. Mm-hmm. Not good for you.
That. Mouth sizing is where you shape the brush with your mouth.
Yeah. Don't do it. You can buy sizing. I'm just adding a little bit of these sort of, whoa, clouds in there, right? A little bit of the drama in that space. And I can kind of come into here and be like, they can get a little darker even as they go back. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Get a little blue into it and kind of helps them blend. How strange. How strange. And then when we have that in there, those little random messy shapes, hopefully you're listening to yourself, that inner artist voice helping you guide you to messy shapes, right? And then you're being empathetic if that's a new skill for you and accepting the stage that you're in, and you know that you're here right now, and today's painting isn't where you're painting 200 paintings from now. It's today's painting, and you're doing a great job today. A lot happening in the world, everywhere. Doesn't even matter when you watch this video. Me saying that will still be true.
It's always true.
I feel like it's never like you were in history class and they were like, well, stuff for like 2,000 years, super boring. Nothing happened. Everybody was pretty good.
Or if they did say that, they're glossing over some stuff.
They're glossing over some stuff.
Human history is a rich tapestry of stories.
It is. And so, you know, I don't know when you're watching this, but I'm sure what I'm saying there will remain true for you. I'm adding these highlights kind of sparingly, but, you know, I want them to feel like, oh, yeah, that could be. That could be. It's not pure white, but it has a bit of that feel to it. So when I get into the water, you know, that won't feel so weird when I put those reflections in. Because water is a mirror. If you did Acrylic April 2020, and boy, are you brave if you did.
Yeah.
Acrylic April is a 30-day painting challenge that I do for my students where we paint every day for 30 days on a particular topic. And I decided in 2020, since we were all stuck home anyways, that everyone ought to learn how to paint water and landscape. And one of the big lessons everybody took away from that is water is a mirror. So whenever you're painting anything that's moisture related in the landscape, you have to think about how that will apply to the ground below. I get a little bit of like, I don't know, maybe power white here. Just a little bit of hot spots, right? I think that's pretty good. All right, John, I think we've made a little bit of a loosey-goosey, landscapey little sky.
I think so too.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to put in some water. So water is a mirror about to be a real meaning for you. So this is actually going to be, I hope, a favorite part for many of you because it's kind of not as challenging as maybe clouds. I'm going to use a number 8 filbert. You could use a bright. The shape of the brush isn't the most important thing for this technique. I want something at least a 1/2 inch wide, I think, for this. And I like the rounding of the filbert. But again, you could use a bright or flat, whatever you have on hand. I'm going to load up my phthalo blue and my burnt sienna. And I'm going to come here and make I'm going to paint this back and forth as horizontally as I can.
What? Why is that important?
Because water tends to level, and unless there's wind really, really altering its surface, it tends to be reflective and smooth.
Ah.
So this is a type of perspective we use in landscape. It's called atmospheric perspective, right? The things that we use to make things look closer or further away in landscape. So like the fact that I'll be bigger brush strokes up front and tinier ones in the back, those kinds of things, and understanding that colors saturate, desaturate, all that stuff. It's a little different than linear perspective, which is the way you create like roads that vanish in the horizon. Man-made things tend to be linear. Nature tends to be atmospheric. How's an atmosphere? Now, this is a pretty dark color at first, and there's a couple reasons for that as I'm coming through and kind of painting out my landscape, right? One of the reasons for it being darker is water tends to be about a shade darker than what's above it, right? It's also quite shadowed by objects around it. So it's good to start with a strong value here. And you can see I'm kind of keeping track of my horizontal. Now, as I go through, though, I can add some white to my color. It's not a brighter value. It's the beginning. Just the beginning. Just the beginning, my friends. But it is just the beginning. Now, notice that my brush kind of, because it's not super wet and the paint isn't heavy, the bristles or the filaments kind of open up. That does help me.
Kind of squish out a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It kind of helps me in this work. I can add a lot more, maybe a little green this time into this mix, a little more of that kind of turquoise. I'm going to add just some of this here and there. I'll put some water into my brush to improve its blendability into the paint that's still wet. And this doesn't mean that I don't have to come back with very dark colors. What it is I'm just painting a bit of a basis of color to help me for later. And I went and got some other light color that had the burnt sienna in it. And I know for a fact it's going to be dark through here because I've got a land bit there. But by working the color in like this that I had up in the sky down here, later when I come in to put those details, it will not be such difficult work for me.
Right.
And they will need to come in later, for sure. I'm adding a little bit more phthalo green and kind of hopefully playing with those reflections. Playing with those ripples. You know, I'm going to come here to the burnt sienna, yellow, and red mix that I had. Add a little touch right there. Kind of see how it's above?
Yeah. Just that little...
Just a little bit.
Sort of a mention of it.
Just a mention. Just so, you know, the water knows I didn't forget. Didn't forget what was here. Later, it will make a difference in how the painting looks. A little lighter than I'd want. I want to do those light ones later, but I will start working this slightly lighter path.
Yeah.
See how we're getting it? Added some blue in. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of knocking back. That's desaturating a little of the color. I'm brushing. I'm trying to avoid being in an angle because that will make my water pour out.
You mean you're trying to keep the lines level there?
I'm trying to keep the lines level. Trying to avoid it. That angle. Because sometimes it's tempting to go down. We get so into the brush stroke, we're not paying attention to its effect. Right? Adding some just dark blue here. Just little. All right. I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, this looks pretty good. So that is the beginning of the water. It's the beginning. All right. And now we're going to get to do the beginning of the most distant plants and trees. Who doesn't love that? Do you love that? You don't have to dry anything to go into the next step. It should be dry. If everything is super wet, then do dry.
Okay.
Right? I'm going to grab a little bit of coffee and see you back in the next step. because this is a landscape and there's distant land, but it's also a little bit in silhouette, what I'm going to be doing is a dark but desaturated background.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take my phthalo blue and phthalo green, which is the color we have up in the sky. And I'm going to take my number 8 hog bristle brush. And I'm going to make little upward strokes.
Oh, yeah.
Through here. Can I do that all through here? Just little short ones. This is, I'll be building up. You can, it's easy to add. It's tough to take away paint. So sometimes, one tends to want to avoid doing things that puts us in those positions.
Right.
A little more brown. Now I know I'm going to have a big bank there kind of covering all that up. Kind of stroking down now, just trying to soften those little edges.
Yeah.
In this type of landscape, it's nice to add a few cypresses. I'm going to add a little cypress. It's just little taller trees sort of implied in the background, right? As you do.
Yeah.
That helps create scale for everything that's around. Just doing this. This isn't my darkest silhouette. Those will be closer, and it's not my most saturated. That will be closer as well. I am going to have the base of all this be dark, though. Darkening that up a little bit. All right, that's looking pretty good, isn't it? Now, I'm going to call this a step, even though it was a super simplistic part, but that's just so you can understand how the layering happens in a project like this.
Right.
Come back, we'll add more landscape. So in this space here, at the top here, and a little bit at the edges here is some brighter green, right? That's where the light's hitting it. It has some atmospheric light to kind of let us see the details and hue of it better, the color of it better. So I'm going to take my burnt sienna into my phthalo green. I'll start with a pretty dark mix to begin. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Make sure my brush isn't particularly wet. Sometimes when you wash out hog brushes, they get a little too wet. And you got to get them in hand.
Now, hog holds more water, yeah?
That's what it is. Hog bristles hold more water. And it's why some artists don't like using it. That's all it is. They get frustrated with it.
Gotcha.
Now, as I go out, I can get a little more upward and like, oh, this is kind of like scratchy grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. More brown. A little scratchy in the grass. I'm going to go ahead and get some black on my brush. I'm going to start pushing that in. Just to make sure that there's good value adjustments. All right. I'm going to let that green continue to set. And I think I'll come over here and brush up some black along my little land mess. Now I know above here, the grass is much lighter and greener. And we may get into some nice round details. But I like to get the basis going.
Right.
Okay. That's the start, right? There. Rinse that out a bit. And what I may do, and I really used a towel to dry out my brush. I use a towel and I squeeze out the brush. Get a little yellow in that. And I'm brushing that upwards and into the black, so sort of creating some unity between those two. I've added the cad yellow into the burnt sienna and phthalo green. And because this is nature, I'm trying to make sure that I have random brush strokes going up and down. One of the nice things when you're painting with me is if you can download, you don't have to print them out. You can keep it as digital, the mini book. And the mini book's free. You just got to have an account on the website, and the website's free. If you download those, that gives you the pictures at every step and some more written out instructions. And if you are a person who, learns in a variety of ways, you need a visual, you need an audio, you need some emotional encouragement, you need all those things.
Yeah.
The book's a powerful tool. I'm going to get into my yellow a bit. Okay. I think that I've got to rinse this out and dry this and come back and we'll do some more detailing on this space. So I think we're doing well. I think you're doing well.
Yeah.
All right. If you're keeping track of the creative leap you're taking, you're listening to yourself, you're empathizing, you're accepting where you are, you're being present in the moment, and you're painting with me, you are winning. Now, I'm going to use, for this step, I'm going to use a number 4 round. This is, again, a Simply Simmons Extra Firm, and I'm also going to use the Princeton Select Liner. Right, for this next little bit here. I'm going to be alternating between those. I'm going to come here, though, and start with my number 4. I'm going to grab some of my phthalo green into that area where I already had some burnt sienna, but I'm being heavier with the phthalo and heavier with the yellow. I'm going to start to highlight some of this distant space back there. Can you see me doing that?
Yeah.
It's too highlighted, too yellow, but I can just blend that back in. We're just trying to make sure that what we have is what is implied banks where that light would be. It can be hard to see that sometimes on a darker painting. Not on your own painting at home, but like in the camera. So it's important to know that it's there. And that's happening. I'm taking my phthalo green and putting it in as well. Right here at these banks, because what does that do? That saturation really helps us to see what it is. And we have that nice dark value underneath, don't we?
Yeah, really do.
Come here with a little highlight on the top. Look at us highlighting the top of those distant little shores. I'm going to come here, and now it's darker over here, and I could probably get back into the green and brown. This is darker over here.
Okay.
And it's because, where's the sky? You can see where the light is.
Oh, right, yeah.
So even though we're seeing it, it's almost a silhouette, but it's a silhouette that we're adding some hue to create some detail about. I'm going to add some black even in kind of an erratic way. And again, it may be hard for you to see on camera, but what we're doing is creating a dark, dark value at the base of the grass.
I think we can see it.
And then maybe some little detailing out. Now, I know I've got to add some of all of this into the water, right? Look at me highlighting that little bit there. It just pops it forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
So now we know what's happening over here. We can really play a lot over here. Take a little bit of my green and yellow together. And it's not the brightest color in ever, but it's much brighter than what it's been attached to, right? Its hue is more vibrant. That's the color it is. It's not grayed out. Get some phthalo green in it. You know, and we have to believe that as the sun rises in the morning, that this is going to be just a beautiful green pond or lake. But right now, as it's coming down, you know, it's just a little moodier. And to that mood, what do? We add a little black in the depth. You'll hear sometimes people say, never use black in landscape. Well,
I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, it's okay to use black in landscape. What teachers are generally trying to help students avoid is using black as a shading element in everything. So you're lightening and with white and darkening with black. Again, because sometimes those two things can desaturate or muddy your color. So they because students can get too reliant on it, they'll do something like never, which is silly, of course. Never's never the right time. Now, I'm going to do some interesting stuff here. I'm going to take this little black and I'm going to kind of make some reflections. See how we've done there? Where those trees and things are maybe a little reflected. And if, you know, it's high there, we're making those little mirrors. And I leave little pops of blue to show, right? And even as I'm kind of like trying to talk about the blades of grass and things, you've got to leave a little blue out there. The darkness does help it feel a bit like water. Making a little few ripples. Do you see I made some ripples there? But then I'm still kind of
I see the ripples.
Trying to get that reflection. I haven't done all the details in the water by any means yet. Now here, I'm going to just really take that far left corner and make it black. I know I'm going to be adding a lot of color to this side to define this.
Okay.
So it's a reflection, that's true, but it's just the beginning of the thought of one. And we haven't really played with all of that. While that is having its thought about what it's done, let's get that liner out.
A liner?
Mm-hmm.
That's
That liner we mentioned at the beginning. I'm going to add a lot of yellow to my yellow, green, and burnt sienna mix. And I'm going to add some detailed grasses. Not all of them are detailed, of course.
But sort of the nature of using that little brush makes them appear detailed.
Yeah, it does. It really pulls everything out. It's pretty good there. That's a nice little effect. It is. It's lovely. That said, I'm going to go into my black.
Okay.
Because also, there's some in silhouette, isn't there?
There is. That adds more contrast.
It adds more contrast to what's happening. It's going to be important when we're trying to float the stems up through the air. Let's put some of this over here as well in black. Some of this kind of like, oh, I plants. I plants. I'm doing plant-like things over here. See me planting?
I do.
I'm growing stalks. That's what it's saying. I'm growing little stalks. I'm doing plant things. Well, that's just fantastic. Okay, we are going to dry this, and when we come back, I'll show you what's next in this cool project. Time to get serious. You ready to get serious?
I am.
So we're going to put some flowers. We got to hit those in the reflection. I think I'm going to throw some up sort of whimsically into the sky, like wind to carry them away. All right, I think that will be fun. I'm going to begin my flowers with a little bit of red and phthalo blue. Now, it's not going to make purple. If you didn't know this, a whole bunch of reds and blues don't make purple in paint. But it's going to make a darker red.
You made a really fun series of videos about unusual color combinations.
I did. Well, we made primaries with secondaries. You know how you're like, primaries are colors that you can't mix, except there's a couple things in pigment you can do. So we made yellow, blue, and red with orange, green, and purple. Mm-hmm. It was a very fun series. I'm going to add some little bits here. So I'm going to I tap it up and down to kind of create the little plant shape. Now, romantically, what I'm hoping to do is I hope to come up like here.
Is that a sky flower?
Well, make love. All right. This is like sort of like, yeah, it's like what's happened is the wind has picked it up.
Ah, wind.
And has blown it. And then it happens to imply the shape of a heart.
It's lovely.
I hope so. It's an idea. This is where I'm listening to my artistic self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that this is a good idea. Take some up here and say that they happened, because that's the thing is we're saying that there's little bits here and there. Not too much. I have to put a lot of the colors that I have in this grass down here in the water. But we're just starting to play with this idea. And I want the focal flowers here to be pretty heavy. And our other flowers that we have here to be a little lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that went to an angle, so I gotta adjust that. And it's okay, I'll be playing with it. Now, once I have it like that, the dark red, guess what I get to come through and do? Some cad red.
Ooh, that's the poppy red.
Yeah, that's when it pops. And I highlight some of these flowers that I have created these dark values for. And the contrast of the dark red to the bright red helps create the shape and form and depth of the flower, doesn't it? Those red flowers that are there. Gotten any of my bright greens in that water yet, which I do need. Adding a little kind of peach to it. Just being playful. You gotta be playful. Back to my pure red. I'll have stems and things coming off of those, right, so that we can tell what they are. I hope we can. Hopefully I don't get like a lot of questions from the thumbnail. What is that? That's always never your artist's favorite thing to hear. But guess what?
Right.
You got to accept you got to accept that you can't paint for them. You paint for you. Don't paint for everyone else. Even when you're painting as a gift, you've got to still paint on some level for yourself. So, don't get so wrapped up in what they might think or, approve. Sometimes we're so busy justifying how our time is spent that we don't realize that we shouldn't have to do that. Sometimes we do things not because it's making a ton of money or, getting the kids to school. Sometimes we do things to stay sane and be ourselves. That's what art kind of does. That's pretty good. I don't mind it. I'm going to take a little bit of my greens though. Go ahead and add some of that to that. Can you see how that's nice though? That level of green is, those are lovely things. Because if it's the color up there, it's the color what? Everywhere. Adding some little reflections like that. Fun to do.
Looks good too.
Looks good too. Okay. Let's get to there and I'll come back and I'll show you what's next. In painting, and I'm going to take my liner brush now and get back into my black, and you'll notice I add water to the black and thin it out so it flows off my brush easily. It is important sometimes that, we create little details that sort of explain our ideas to the viewer and to ourselves. And
right,
because you are painting for yourself, but it's okay to say, this is what's happening here. So I will sometimes come back and like I'm doing here, add some stems. I might our heart maybe is, attached to something. Right, because we're trying to say that these have been uprooted a little bit and are flying away.
Floating away on the breeze.
Might be floating away on the breeze. Right? There. I'm going to rinse this out a bit. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to get a little more red on there. Maybe add a little yellow to it. All right. Taking this brush, kind of popping some drama. Still red, but it's just got a little bit of yellow to lighten the value.
Right.
If you use white to lighten the value, it will be coral, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with coral. Coral's a great color. Just trying to exaggerate that little heart shape. No, you'll have to let me know. Does it work? Do you feel the meaning of the romantic painting? Did you understand when you're painting it? Did it make you feel that way? It's spectacular, isn't it?
Really is.
Okay, another important thing to do at this stage is we've got to get some very nice reflections happening. And they don't have to be perfectly white, but they need to be light. We might do some perfectly white ones, but let's get some. Little water reflections happening around the corner. Sort of just around the river bend.
Right.
These are little ripples in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like them? The little ripples
I
in
very
the
much
water.
like little ripples. I think they add motion to the surface.
Well, there is a little bit, isn't there? A motion to the surface. There's a little bit of flow, and there's also maybe a little bit of breeze or stream. Now, I may come in if I think I get like a little kind of offsides with it. I can come back with my bigger brush, my number 4 round, and up front blend that in. If I feel like, oh, well, the detail brush was getting a little bit away from me, I can come into this for a second. Because remember, the reflections will be smaller when they're further away. Now, which is closer to us might be bigger. Might add some brighter reflections through here. That's okay. Not solid, because you want some focus. And that doesn't mean I won't come back through with my little brush and add some pops of white. Because I might. Just adding little highlights, little reflections. My water. Little sparkles.
Little sparkles.
Little sparkles. I like sparkles. Little playful pink ways of doing that. There's so many ways you can add these in with a fan brush. You can add these in with so many things. You know. Coming around, telling that story.
Just a little bit at a time.
It's for wet into wet so I can blend those in, play with that. Just working that out. All right. Just little details here and there.
Really makes it pop up.
It does. It helps tell the total story of the landscape, I think. You know, I can come in and get a little white into that and then maybe add a little light reflection here. So that's what I'm doing is I'm just working out those little reflections, telling that little story. I think I might also kind of come in on the inside of these stems. Kind of thin those out a bit. Add some layers in here. That's nice to sort of put those flowers in space, right? There we go. I think, John, what do you think?
I think it's beautiful. I love it.
Do you think it's working?
Yeah.
Some more drama right here. Be a fun day to see a bunch of flowers like get caught by a windy moment, right?
Yeah.
And then you look up and it looks like a heart in the sky. I guess this is I miss you guys.
Yeah. I miss seeing everybody.
I do. I miss seeing everybody. I'm going to grab a little bit of white on here. You could use fluid white or you could thin white at this stage. I'm going to come here and maybe detail out some of these little guys right here.
Oh, wow. That really does nice. That's a definitely cool thing there.
Right? Kind of talking about some highlight coming in the center.
Little silver lining.
Little silver lining. I mean, it's nice. We can't always see the silver lining in our lives. It's hard to find all the time.
True.
Sometimes it takes wisdom and distance to know where it was. This is super fun.
Yeah.
All right. I think there's nothing to do but sign it right now. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think I'm going to sign in. Because the red is such a focus of this painting, I'm not inclined to sign in a very overtly noticeable color. I want to sign where you can see it, but I don't want to pull from the red, so I'm going to use a light blue. Oh, that's a fun little landscape painting, wasn't it? Just a weird little fantasy because we miss everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I miss you guys very, very much. When you come back, we're going to tell you what's next and what you can do with your art. Guys, we spent some time together today painting, and that's always a great thing to do. Being creative really allows us to almost meditatively put down the things that we're kind of thinking about and held by. It's very healing, and while I acknowledge it is not a replacement for good medical care, it can be part of an amazing life program where you're just investing back in yourself and your own sense of well-being. Don't you think, John?
Totally agree.
Totally agree. We totally both feel this. Now, I hope that you took the leap with me. I hope you listened to yourself and you learned to empathize. You started kind of checking yourself for those negative thoughts. You started to accept where you are in your creative journey. You became present to the right now, not the paintings you had in the past, paintings in the future, but the painting that's going on right now, the experience you're having right now. And I hope you went in and painted with me. If you'd like to share that, and I would love to see it, I have a group on Facebook, the Art Sherpa Official, where you can share my lessons anytime. And it's a safe space. It's curated. The community is so supportive and so loving. So you'll be treated great from your first painting to your 200th. And everybody in there has had a first painting. And we all know what that's like. So you're going to always be understood at whatever stage you're at. I'm also on all the social media. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you happen to be on TikTok or Pinterest, and you can share the art there. But also don't forget to come by our website, sign up. Right? Get that free account, get those free resources. I think we started in 2021 doing mini books.
Yeah.
Right? I have 1,500 lessons, but that year we did like hundreds, 178, 200, some crazy number of written out instructions that's free to you guys to just download. Now you can print those out if you want. You don't have to print those out to save paper, and you can just go through them as a PDF, but they can really help you succeed in your painting. And I feel like with those resources, you can do anything. Now, this lesson taught you a little bit about landscape and how landscape in general is painted. So while it was sort of fun and light, you did learn some very serious things that will help you in other paintings. And if you keep doing this, you will grow in your skills. You're going to grow in your experience, and you're going to have more successful paintings that you love. But remember, every painting is its own painting. The painting today isn't the painting tomorrow, isn't the painting yesterday. It's a sit down at a blank canvas and discover it. And for that, if you have questions, please leave those in the comments below. I love to read this. I go through my YouTube channel. I try to get in my group all the time, on my Facebook page all the time, and read your comments and see what you guys have to say. Answer your questions everywhere I can. We have support at theartsherpa.com. So hopefully that lets you know what's going on. Now, those of you who are going through this real time are probably like, are you in Ireland yet? And we are going to make a video about that to let you guys know. If you're here years later, hopefully all the videos are from Ireland.
Right. You're like, why are you in America?
But our timeline just changed a teeny tiny bit, and it's for incredibly good reasons that we're excited about, and actually our thanks to you guys, because you let us know of
good advice.
You gave some good advice that actually protected us. So we are going to Ireland still, and we'll be sharing that experience with you. We'll give update videos about that trip and what it takes. I'll even share with you my luggage on how I'm transporting my art supplies. Mm-hmm. So watch for that. What does that mean to you guys at home? Hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell. Follow along. Hit that page. Follow. So that you get notifications. Sign up for the newsletter so you get notifications and you know what's going on, because that's how you stay in touch with what we're doing, especially when we're in this transitory stage. I hope you're loving our on the road kind of transitory lessons. There's nothing left. To be good to yourself, do that. Be kind to yourself. Take that kindness and be kind to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.